Hello, I'm Sean McAngus, and welcome back to another episode of the Highland League podcast. In this episode, I speak to goalkeeper Lenny Wilson. He talks about his youth days at Aberdeen, Inverness, and Arbroath, his time out in the States, playing at college level, and also playing in the MLS draft, how the move came about to join Peterhead before signing for Brechin. His favourite memories there, including winning the Highland League title. He reveals how he almost joined Buckie Thistle and how he's enjoying his time at Huntly and much more. Hope you enjoy this interview. Lenny, were you always a goalkeeper or?
No, I think starting off, I think got into football at about 7-year-old or whatever. It wasn't as early as maybe some. My dad was more of a rugby fan, so that's what I grew up with. Kind of growing up, as soon as I could, pick up a ball, kick a ball, it was a rugby ball. And it's only really with football being more popular than rugby in school that I got into football. So you can imagine, yeah, having that predicament of do you stick with your friends or do you try to do both. So on a Saturday I would play rugby, Sunday play football. That kind of went on for all the way through primary school kind of thing. And then when football started becoming more serious, I had to go and pick football. So initially I was an outfielder growing up, centre mid or right back. And then I remember going along to, like I said, these Aberdeen summer camps that they do
Oh yeah.
down at Balgownie playing field. So just for a laugh, went along as a keeper just for something different. Obviously, when you play football, your mates you have to take a shot and goal. How it works. So yeah, we'd do that and enjoyed it. Just enjoyed. I think any kid at that age was just throwing themselves around, getting as dirty as possible in the garden and whatnot or the park. So went along. Aberdeen youth development goalie coach at the time must have seen something and thought, right, we can maybe mould something out of that. And I thought it was a joke at the end of the kind of week when they were like, "Do you want to come in, for the start of the season as a keeper?" And I was like, "Never played a game in goal in my life," but obviously being an Aberdeen fan, I was like, "Yep, absolutely." Ask questions later. It just kind of went off from there. I think that was under 11s or something, under 10s, under 11s, whatever the age is. It starts, and yeah, that was me right through until under 17s. So yeah, not always an outfielder, but still a handy outfielder when the time comes.
So how did you find that experience being in the youth ranks at Aberdeen?
It was really good. Here we go. I think obviously being an Aberdeen fan, it made it easy, like the commitment to kind of the training and the sacrifice that comes with that. With as you get older, the social aspect of not being able to maybe see friends on Friday nights or whatnot. But yeah, it goes by in a flash. When you really look back at it now, a lot of the boys that were in my team at under 10s were kind of there at the end as well, that under 17s. So to do that journey with them and see where they're now at and where some of us are at, it's interesting. You've got some of them that are playing international and Champions League football, and some that are not in football at all. Some in Highland League, some in League One, League Two, etc. So it's a good spread, but no, it was a really good experience, and we're all fortunate enough to have had that experience.
Yeah, so who were the kind of names that some people would know that have kind of kicked on and
Gone.
played?
In my year, kind of from day one, has been folk like Scott McKenna, Jason Brown, who's the captain now at Peterhead. Highland Leaguers would be common with is Ewan McDonald at Formartine, Scott Adams, who's also at Formartine, Harry Milne, who's at Hearts.
Yeah.
Who else have we got? Sam Burnett, who was also at Locals for quite a long spell.
Oh yeah.
Who else have we got? I'm trying to think top end of the pitch. Well, when it then merged to 17s, where you're kind of playing with amongst two age groups, you had the likes like Cammy Smith, Mike Rose, Scott Ferris, Craig Story, these kind of guys that have all had gone on to have really good careers. So yeah, it was very talented group that came through, and obviously Scott and Harry are probably the two that have gone on to do the best things and probably taken kind of separate, totally different paths to doing that.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, incredible to especially what Scott's done and played with the international team for as long as he has and played in La Liga, English Premier League. So yeah, it's great to see.
Yeah. So in terms of the experience, was there ever opportunity to progress further, beyond the age group that you're at?
Yeah, so 17s is kind of like the cutthroat kind of
Mm.
point where, as I mentioned, I think you go from under 15s to under 17, so you get 2 years under 17s to kind of prove your prove your uh, prove your work. So first year, it was me and another older keeper who was based in Glasgow, so I never really trained with him, just kind of saw him on a weekend. It's not like the Aberdeen Academy now where they get all the boys to the same school and
Mm.
whatnot. It was back then. It was half the team was from Glasgow, half the team was from Aberdeen. Um, but yeah, I had a good. I was starting most games, doing well. Going into the second season, well, after your first season, you get told kind of like how you're doing, like a report card kind of thing, and they were happy with what was going on. So, and then the second season was kind of much the same, and I thought, at one point it was kind of almost a foregone conclusion that I would have a full time contract at the end of it. And to be fair, I think when that did happen was when kind of disaster hit, and I did put in a few kind of dubious performances, but I thought it'd be okay. It was only one or two towards the end, and they opted not to um, give me a contract. And I mean, at the time they did say it was mostly to do with height, reservations. 'Cause I think at the time I was only I kind of shot up ironically like just after that summer,
Mm.
uh, but I was for a keeper probably not the tallest. And yeah, it just was one of those things that it just wasn't meant to be at the time. So no, I stayed as long as I could, and then obviously Aberdeen took the decision just when I was away to turn 17, that it was time to move on.
How did you find dealing that? Because obviously being an Aberdeen fan, that's
Yeah,
something that always people dream to be in that situation,
yeah.
getting.
I think it's quite a vulnerable age. I think obviously, as you said, I'd been there kind of since like day one as well. You always kind of dread the day that it does happen. And I think you always know in the back of your mind it can happen, but nothing really prepares you for it. Um, but yeah, I was devastated. I think a lot of people will share the opinion of like you just wanted to almost quit there and then. And that's where you kind of need the support of your parents, um, and people who've maybe been through it before to try and help you through it and try and keep you on the straight and narrow of one door closes, another one will open. But I think I always thought that being from Aberdeen, like where you're going to go, like we're not littered with teams like this in the Central Belt where you can just go into the next one. So I actually thought there and then that I would maybe go back to rugby. That's kind of where my head was, or I don't know, just play for fun with friends at amateur level. But no, I had a quick brief spell. I think just immediately after that summer, just playing with friends and just try to play for enjoyment. But then once the season starts again, back in July August kind of time, I was looking to get away from that again and get back to kind of like pro youth football.
Yeah, so you were at Caley as well, were you? Or
Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of where I was next because I think me and the boy Jason Brown, who was my age, we both got released at the same time. Um, he was quick. I think basically like soon after being released, he was straight on to the phone with Inverness to get something sorted there. So he then put me in touch with Charlie Christie, who was the head of youth at the time. And yeah, that's how that came about. Get the train after school every Friday,
Hmm.
down for training and stuff. So it was a good laugh. We enjoyed that. And that was only a 1 year thing.
Aye.
And then with even when signing, they did say that we've had a homegrown keeper since kind of day dot. Um, who'll probably definitely get a contract. Just imagine it's just a matter of if we can take two. So I don't think Inverness was the most rich club at the time. So I think they only took on about 4 or 5 full timers that year. So I mean, that was just a way for me to stay in kind of pro youth football and play as high a standard as I could, given the kind of geographics of it. And then that was just a 1 year thing, and then it was kind of on to the next kind of phase, which was going to go play for Arbroath. The manager at the time was Paul Sheeran, so he wanted me to come in and play for the 19s, and then be on the bench for the first team. So that was a good experience in itself. That was kind of the first introduction to men's football. I would train with the 19s on a Monday, Wednesday, and train with the first team on a Tuesday or Thursday. Kind of just at manager's discretion kind of thing. So yeah, that was the first introduction to men's football.
What was the kind of biggest learning curve from being at our bro?
Yeah, I think every player now will always look back at their first experience of men's football and be like, yeah, that was a massive learning curve. Whether some are positive or negative at the time, they definitely always end up to be positive in the long term. Obviously, the standard is definitely higher than playing with just people your own age. The physicality side is much, much more prominent as well. Like for me, being a goalkeeper, especially, like shots are coming in at a much different pace than they would with just a bunch of like 16-year-old boys. So no, it was really good. Obviously, playing with the 19s, getting the game time was really good. But then that learning curve of being the youngest in a changing room and having to like grow up quickly. Because that's how the banter is. Like the old boys, they do look out for you. They do try to get you to come out your shell. And being an old boy now, kind of, you see it now that that was once me, kind of thing. So no, it was really good. First team players at the time were all really good with me. Obviously, Paul Sheeran at the time was a player manager. He was great with me. Had people like Bobby Lynn, fantastic, Ricky Little, and they were all, understanding of a young keeper. It's not just a young outfielder. Like it's like almost an extra added kind of pressure as well. Because obviously they knew that if the first team keeper was to get injured, that I need to be ready. And part of being ready is probably having that bit of personality as well to feel like you belong there. So no, it feels a long time ago, but still fond memories.
Yeah. So did you ever get to go on and play for Arbroath or not? Or
No, it was just the 19s. There was definitely a few touch and go moments. I remember being on the bench at Ibrox and the goalkeeper at the time, Scott Morrison. This was when I was still from my first year, so I was like 17. The Rangers were in the league at that point, and I think it's only like 10 minutes into the game, and the nerves are already there just from the warm up and coming out the tunnel and sitting on the bench. It's bad enough, but he had kind of innocuously just like gone down, like for no reason. Like it wasn't like anyone around him. They're sometimes the worst ones, as kind of people say. And obviously, guys on the bench are elbowing me, like being like laughing, and I'd be like, "Get ready, get ready!" And I'm sitting there like eating Jaffa cakes, like no chance am I going on, no chance. And just that moment that your heart kind of sinks and you're having to go run down the line, and obviously Rangers fans obviously seeing that it's just a young kid and just getting pelters like, please put you on kind of thing. And I'm like, oh no. In that moment, you're just like, I'm not ready for this, not ready. As much as you're excited as well, you're just like, realistically not ready. But thankfully, did get up, and at halftime, I was like, what happened? He's like, the only reason I'm staying on is because it's not fair. It just put me in straight away. So I think he just got on with it. He kind of took the pain and missed training for the next week after that. With like, I think he rolled his ankle or something. So I thank him for that, because God knows what would have happened if I'd gone on that day. But I think things like that and other innocuous injuries, like you see keepers get, has been the closest I got to that.
so in terms of after you left Arbroath, what were kind of the options? Was there any clubs in for you before going to America or?
Yeah, so I think when it was coming to kind of that time in my career of I was starting to question if I would be better to move on and start playing regularly. Other things in life were going on, so I was finishing up school. I was playing for the Scotland under 18 schoolboy team, and that's kind of how the next kind of chapter evolved. I was then down at Blackburn for a couple of months, um, basically as a extended trial into a short contract. And the reason it was cut short was essentially when you sign in England, it's under 18s and under 23s.
Yeah.
The gap's quite a big jump. How they cut it though isn't quite the same as like the date of birth is like how they stop it. So as soon as you turn 18, you're no longer eligible to play for the 18. So my birthday is the 29th of December. So
Oh.
I knew that basically come New Year, I was finished. Anyway, so had a contract till then to try and prove like if I'd be worth keeping on to the 23s. Little did I know when going down there that the under 23s goal at the time was David Raya. Now, I remember doing the first session and looking at this guy being like, this guy's like technically unbelievable. Like, if this is the standard, then what? Like, I'm not there. So I remember speaking to him and saying, like, he was recently signed like that summer as well. So this was his first preseason. His English at this time wasn't great, so I was trying to get out of him like what club before kind of thing. And eventually he was like, he was like Barcelona, and I was like, really, like he's coming from Barca and I'm coming from Arbroath. Like, there's got like, what am I doing here? Like, but of course, at the time, like you don't know like really who he is, like because you don't know what he's going to go on to do. Anyway, yeah, so I was playing 18s football. He was the 23s goalie, and then it was pretty soon into that kind of stint that I realised after speaking with the manager, like for the 23s, that obviously David was going to be like number one for the 23s the following year, and I was like, I can't have any complaints with that. And they already had a lad in the 23s, a guy called Ryan Crump, that came from Liverpool as well. So I was like, I'm going to hide into nothing here. Like, one guy's come from Barcelona, one guy's come from Liverpool. I'm not going to be able to make up the numbers here coming from Arbroath. So basically, before it came to even December, I took the decision to just be like, there's no point in me being here. And I spoke to Paul Sheeran again at Arbroath, and I said, you know, can I come back kind of thing? You know, if I can, you know, get myself out of here, and I'm sure I'll be able to just walk. And he was fine with that. But then I think it was, if I remember right, it was must have been about October, was it? November? I think Sheeran either walked or got sacked. There was a change of management. A guy called, what was his real name? Known him as Moody. What was his name? Oh, anyway, change of management. Him and a guy called Todd Lumsden came in. Alan Moore, that was it. Alan Moore and Todd Lumsden. So they came into Arbroath, and obviously I'd already agreed to come back. And I remember walking at the office the first day, obviously knowing it's not going to be Paul Sheeran and knowing that they've never met me. But I don't think anyone had told them that I was coming. So I turned up for a game on the Saturday, and just to kind of, you know, sign my contract and whatnot. And then Alan was like, "Who's this?" And the chairman was like, "Oh, like you can see on his face, like hadn't explained it, like, oh, the Sheeran's agreed to have him back. He was here before, blah blah blah." And he could tell he was like, well, I've not signed him, so why is he here? But so that immediately made it difficult, like where to go. So no, it was fine. Once I went into training and explained it, they were fine with it. That was me. But as I said, in the background, kind of, I was leaving school, wasn't sure what was next, and coming back from Blackburn and signing for Arbroath, American soccer scholarship company reached out, and it was actually ran by the ex Stirling Albion goalie coach guy called Dave Binney. So I'd like met him before just by playing like for the Arbroath 19s. He was obviously the goalie coach helping out with them. He had reached out and said, "Look, would you fancy it?" kind of thing. Kind of sold it well. It's kind of, obviously they sell it big time. Like, oh,
Aye, yeah,
go live in like Florida or New York or something and get your degree and play football at the highest level. I was like, there's not much not to like there. So let's find out. Let's read some of the small print then. But kind of as it kind of progressed, it was like this is looking like a really good option. There's a few kind of moving parts with it. Like you have to kind of prove your academic kind of credentials as well as like your footballing ones. And how it works is that the better your grades at school, kind of thing, and obviously your performance in football gets you like a better scholarship, so less amount you need to pay.
aye.
And yeah, that's kind of where um, it went after Arbroath, and that was back in 2015.
Yeah, so what was the standard like, when you were playing out there? What was the standard of football like?
So the standard, when depending on who you speak to, can vary because there's different like in any walk of football, there's different levels. I was lucky enough to play at like the highest level, division, what they call NCAA Division One.
Yep.
So NCAA anything like different sports like NCAA Basketball Division One, NCAA American Football Division One. That's always the best standard. Um, NAI is for people who maybe don't quite have the grades. The standard of football probably won't be as good because like the facilities won't be as good, etc. And it's
Mm.
only a 2 year course. But anyway, the level I was at, I would compare it to probably about as highest as I've played at, to be honest. Obviously, it's all younger guys. Like the oldest guys will be about 23, the
Right.
youngest will be 17, 18. And it's just the pace of the game's really high. Obviously, you're training every day, it's full time. Um, the facilities are unbelievable. Um, and at the top level, it's a lot of guys who around the world have just been, let go by academies.
Mm.
So you've got guys, coming from Germany, France, all being released, like similar boat to like myself,
Aye.
um, and we all come together as kind of a melting pot to try and make like as good a team as we can for the amount of time that we're there together. So the standard for me was, I don't know how I would compare it, but for me, it would be easily on par with like, it might sound bold, but like Scottish League One Championship, maybe the Championship, I would even maybe say, but
Mm.
it's a different type of football, so that's why it's hard to compare.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's not like adults foot, like men's football here. It's just a lot more. Like, here's a lot more like maybe tactical, slower. Whilst there, it's just end to end, kind of like athletes. As you say, you're sometimes playing against Brazilians, Mexicans, in like some people from like Africa and stuff. So like it's a right blend of skill sets that gets merged together. So no, it was the 4 years I was there was definitely the best I've performed and probably the best standard of football I've been involved in.
Yeah. You also played in the US soccer league, the League Two. How did you find that experience?
Yeah, it was really probably again very similar to kind of like the college level. It's basically a summer league that runs from like May through till depending on how well your team does,
Mm.
like July. So these teams are dotted all over the country. You either can be recruited for them, like the top kind of teams will go recruit players from the universities and offer you kind of housing and food as like a compensation. They can't legally
Aye.
pay you. So that's kind of the compensation there. Again, there'll be people from all different universities. So again, you're meeting new people all the time. It's incredible. So you're down there. They'll train every day. As I say, they'll put you up in like nice housing, pay for your food. They'll come either stock the fridge for you or give you the equivalent of like a Costco card and say like, do your best kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Aye.
So yeah, if I look back at, they're probably some of my favorite memories actually. So I had a summer down in Texas, a summer in Michigan, a summer in New York as well, and then a summer in LA. So every summer that I was over there, I played for a team, and again meeting new people, different grounds, playing against different teams. yeah, probably if I could recommend it to anyone, I definitely would, because you don't have to be a college player to do it. You can be anybody. If there's anyone out of contract coming up to summer, then yeah.
Yeah. So was there any kind of favorite grounds that you went to, or players that you ended up facing that went on to do something,
Yeah,
or maybe just decent players that stood out? That
yeah, there's quite a few. So I think in terms of grounds, I wouldn't say there's too many like favourites. Probably one that would stand out was Oakland. Rangers have like a partnership with a team called Orange City,
Yep.
which is over in California. Their ground's nice, so we played there against their USL team. Um, that was pretty good. Um, nice ground. Grass was like it was like Bermuda grass. It was just unbelievable. Um, totally different to the absolute dross that we play on in the Highland League. Um, that probably the main standout. In terms of players, yeah, it's like where do you really begin? If I were to start from just like college and who I've played with, there'll be a man playing in the Champions League tonight for Villarreal, a Canadian guy called Tani Oluwasai. His last name's always a mouthful, but
Yeah.
he was when I was in my last year. He was in his like first year, what they call freshman year, and he'd probably be first to admit himself he was a bit raw, but you could see there was definitely like the makings of like a real talent. Um, and we had him, and then the young goalie who was playing underneath me, a guy called Luca Gavin, who's also Canadian. They're both now in the Canadian national team. Will be going to the World Cup. Um, yeah, they were both. I was training and playing with every day, and it's kind of strange now. We get to know each other like really well, basically almost living with each other. To see them both be so young at the time, and now
Mm.
see them where they are now, you almost feel like a proud uncle. Uh, no, and then in terms of playing against, I think one that would well, actually, this is playing with as well, actually, because it was in the summer league. It's his team when I was playing in LA, a guy called Celio Pompiao. He's Brazilian, like a winger, but like everything you'd expect a Brazilian winger to be, just like both like ridiculously good off both feet, like agile, quick. Um, he's now playing for St. Louis in MLS, but I think read a couple of things that he's been linked with moves to Spain, back to Brazil, but for like one of the big hitters like Corinthians. Um, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's a name that you come across soon.
Yeah.
In terms of against, probably the main one that stood out at the time and can now see by his career is a guy called Tejon Buchanan. He played for Syracuse University, which is one of the kind of more prestigious kind of footballing teams in the US, like historically. Another Canadian as well, who's going to be playing in the World Cup as well. Um, he went from there to I think New England Revolution, but after playing against him, I was like, he'll go further than MLS. So he did. He went to Club Bruges after that,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then Inter Milan, and then now he'll be playing tonight for Villarreal as well. So him and Tony are now on the same team. So yeah, I could name so many more, but off the top of my head, they're kind of the main ones. There's a lot of them dotted around the MLS, or if they did play MLS, they're now playing in the USL Championship. But um, there's a lot of foreign guys that go out there and don't make it in the MLS just because of the rules that the MLS have over
Aye. Yeah.
American players that foreign players that they're allowed. So there's people like Germans and French guys who are playing in top tier, second tier now, and there was actually some monster striker we used to play against every year because they were in our league. A guy called Francis Perrault, who'll be playing for Haiti in the World Cup.
That's
Like I can't get away from this guy because he used to give me nightmares. Uh, he'll be playing.
no.
So yeah, it seems like he was actually playing for EAK Athens against Aberdeen in the Europa League, the Conference League as well. It's like can't get away from him. So no, it's too many to name off the top of my head, but yeah, an amazing experience looking back at it. Probably the best that I've you know played myself. Obviously, it makes sense. You're training every day, eating the right things. Always got like a sport nutritionist not far away checking up on things. So yeah, as I mean, it's about as professional as you're going to get, and I don't think anyone has a real understanding of like the level of facilities there is out there. Um, Totally surpassed my expectation. Like you see pictures and stuff, but it'd be the equivalent of like a Premier League setup in terms of facilities.
Yeah.
What they give you, you've got everything you need to be successful. So yeah, 4 years. I wish I could do again, but they don't take old boys like me now.
You're a pensioner according to them now.
Exactly. I've been asked to come back as a coach, but that's about it.
Uh, so I was reading you're involved in the draft kind of system.
Yeah,
How did you find that being involved?
yeah. I think when you set off from the start naively, day one is like a first year over there. Your kind of end goal is to try and hopefully maybe get picked up by a team. But as you kind of go through the process and learn a bit more from coaches and players, that it's not simple. It's not just as simple as if you're good, you'll get someone will pick you up.
Yeah.
A lot of politics involved with it in terms of
Mm.
the rules of the league. Like they're only allowed like seven, foreign players in their whole squad, and they don't dish them out lightly. Like they're usually kept for people like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Kaká, Beckham, not Lenny Wilson. So
Mm.
I mean, obviously across your 4 years, you want to just play as well as you can, enjoy it as much as you can. It was only really my fourth year. My manager kind of pulled me at the start of it. It was like, you could be involved if you have a good year because you've had 3 good years so far. So you're definitely kind of on the radar for a couple of teams, which I knew, especially locally. My university was in New York, so I had trained with Red Bulls prior to the draft. So it was mostly just throughout my last year. There was talks that the MLS might call, well, because it's up to the MLS teams
Yeah.
who gets picked for this. So essentially, how it works is each team will be given kind of like a short list of players that they would, that the NCAA, like the university governing body, have like deemed as like potential targets to go to the MLS. So there'll be, for example, there was probably 10 goalkeepers on that list, and I was one of them. So you're first then informed that you're on the short list. This is probably November. The draft is in like start of January, mid January. So I was told I was on the list. So I was like, I won't be like, didn't think much of it. Season's over, so you're just kind of waiting to go home essentially for Christmas. So I thought the list was going to be announced kind of mid December, but for whatever reason, it was kind of announced pretty late. I think it was like 19th of December. So by this time, I'm home for Christmas and I'm out with my friends. And I remember sitting in Revolution in Aberdeen about 10 o'clock. So obviously, their time, it's only like 5 p.m.
Aye.
And I get a phone call coming through from a manager in America. And I'm like, why the fuck is he calling me, kind of thing? Like, leave me alone. I'm home for Christmas. So I just put it in my pocket and just continue on my night. And then phone buzzes like 5 minutes later saying that you've got a voicemail. I'm like, why is he leaving me a voice? At this point, I'm not even thinking about what it could be. I'm more thinking like, if I left, like, is my apartment like being broken into or something back in New York or what's
Mm.
going on? So I think it's like 1:30, and I'm like, right, I'm stepping outside because it's playing on my mind now. I'm like, what if my apartment actually is like up on fire or something? So here we go. Listen to the voicemail, and it's basically him saying like, I'm invited, I'm going, like, you just need to like email over like, where you need to fly from, and like, the MLS like personnel will be in touch and get your flight sorted and whatnot. Obviously, I'm in quite a alcohol fueled kind of environment at that time, and I'm like, am I hearing this right? I'm actually going to this. But I'm also thinking, how prepared am I? Because this is at the start of January, and I've not done much exercise since being home. And I've got New Year plans and whatnot. So I was like, that's a bit of a scunner. So yeah, had to try and behave myself as much as I could over the rest of that Christmas period. And then, yeah, the next morning I saw the publicised list of the people that were going to the combine, and I was on it. I was like, here we go. So yeah, Orlando for 5 days. They put you up in the Ritz Carlton, and you're basically training every day in front of MLS coaches, doing like the fitness test in front of the coaches, and then you're eventually split into 4 teams. So that's kind of like your squad for the week. So you'll train with that squad, and then you'll play against the other teams at Orlando City Stadium.
Yeah.
So that itself was actually, if you go back to the stadiums question, that's the best one, by quite a distance. So yeah, that experience was good. I just felt I played well in it. There's not really a sense of too many regrets of when I was there. So essentially, if you're not training or playing, the first team management, like the first team staff or all these MLS teams, are kind of just like wandering around the hotel. So what they'll do is there's like a player liaison that's like got everyone's number. They'll then message you or call you to say there's a meeting set up with New York Red Bulls for 10 o'clock this morning or whatever. So yeah, spoke to a lot of 3 or 4 teams that were definitely interested to kind of have a chat and see what's what. But they all knew that I was obviously Scottish, so I was more like this could be a quick conversation kind of thing.
Aye.
Anyway, so I spoke to them all. We all had similar conversations. I sat down with the 2 New York teams, obviously, which made sense because they had seen me. But that summer that I had playing the summer league, LAFC had also seen me play a couple of times, and also they can look at all your game footage from playing at university as well. So had that, and then the New England Revolution. So spoke to quite a few of these teams and understood the connection to why they would be coming to speak to me. So essentially, at the time, I had an American partner, and once they caught drift of that, God knows how they found that out, but they did. And they were trying to bark down the tree of like, okay, you don't have citizenship, but you could get citizenship if you marry your partner, and that would make our lives easier because you wouldn't be taking up an international spot. And I'm really sitting there like, are they really asking me to marry my girlfriend at 22 years old just so I can have citizenship? I'm like, all morals out the window. I'm like, this isn't even real. Like it's something of a film or something. So obviously you can't say yes or no in the moment, or like go and phone her and be like, do you fancy it, kind of thing. So it was a strange week, an amazing week in terms of like the people you speak to, the people you meet. Again, a lot of the American Canadian guys who went to that are now playing, really good standard.
Yeah.
Obviously, as I mentioned, for the foreigners, it's a much tougher process. So no, I don't have any regrets. Obviously, I don't regret not marrying someone for the sake of getting a green card. And as much as I look back and think, oh, I could have really changed my life. Could have been, sitting in the sun, playing at a better standard. But you know how football works. It probably wouldn't have been as simple as that. So, but no, it's interesting because even if a team had decided to draft me, being drafted doesn't mean you're signed. It just means that they want, they're committing to taking you to pre-season. You then
Okay.
you then earn your contract when you're there. So even then, it's like, even if you're not drafted, you can still go to pre-season to these teams. They can still invite you. It's just a bit more of a stage. It's a bit more of like them putting a statement of intent to you.
Aye.
So no, it just wasn't to be. I think when a lot of teams had the same conversation about the marriage thing, I was like, you can't expect me to do this kind of thing. So that was kind of like their ultimatum. It was like, we can't really do much with you otherwise. So, and I understood because I was like, who would you rather use your spots on? Like, some of the big hitters that are going over there now, like Messi, Suarez, or sign me. It's like, does it even come close to the decision? So, no, amazing experience. Met a lot of amazing folk, and definitely a memory I'll definitely keep forever.
Yeah. So how did you find coming back to Scotland? And obviously you went on to sign for Peterhead. How did you find a bit of a culture shock, or
Probably, yeah, probably the biggest like grounding moments in a while. Part of me was excited to come back. Part of me was thinking I'll be back in America soon, whether that's playing, coaching, working through my degree. I didn't know at the time. I did think it was maybe a temporary thing, maximum a year, because I only signed a 1 year contract at the time for that very reason. Um, to be fair, Jim McAnally was very good with me at the time. I did explain all what I've just said to him, and he was like, "Look, if a job opportunity comes up for you or a football opportunity comes up, I'll not stand in your way. Like you can go, but you do need to sign something, or else you can't play here." So yeah, but yeah, culture. I mean, I just came back from playing in LA, so coming back to Peterhead was not quite the same. But no, it was again back in men's football, back with Jason Brown.
Yeah.
Um, so no, it was good. It was good to get back. So I was determined to kind of get back to a good standard, and that felt like a good option with obviously knowing Jason, um, Peterhead being fairly local. So yeah, it was kind of the start of the return to Scotland.
Yeah, so how did you find that experience being at Peterhead? Any kind of memorable moments there or
Um, yeah, so when I joined my first season, the first choice keeper was the guy Craig Levein. Really experienced that level, like Championship League One. Really good keeper. Um, I was clearly in there to be like his kind of backup, and that's how it turned out. I didn't play a single game in the. Oh, was Flem there for 2 years? No, he was just there for the 1 year. I think I was there. He then moved on to somewhere closer because his home base was like near Annan.
yeah, I do remember reading that he was
So
trailing
he
all
was,
the
yeah, he was traveling through to Forfar for training, and Flem won't mind me saying this, but he was getting towards the latter end of his career and had two young kids and a hell of a lot of traveling. So I think he then went and signed for Annan, I think, or I can't remember, was it Annan? He signed somewhere definitely closer to home anyway, which then kind of opened the door for me to be the number one the next year. And then a keeper I'm good friends with now, boy Brett Long came in. He came in from Motherwell or Dumbarton. I can't remember if he was straight from Motherwell or not. But anyway, another really good goalkeeper. Me and him kind of battled out for game time there. Again, kind of game about until maybe 3, 5 games in the season. It's tough as a keeper once a manager makes a decision. It's a tough position to win back. It's kind of not in your hands. It's more in the other guy's hands to
Hmm.
kind of give the position back to you. So no, I had no problem with that. Like this kind of thing as a young goalkeeper, at the age of what was I at the time, 22, 23. I was still young. Couldn't expect to just walk into a first team without any kind of competition, especially in League One. So of course frustrating and wasn't getting the game time I wanted. I was playing in friendlies or cup games, these the Challenge Cup and stuff. So I was still getting games, but you want to be playing in the league. So had a bit of a decision to make come the end of that season. I played quite a few games towards the end of that latter season. Um, and Brett then Brett then went back to Dumbarton. I think again travelling. I think a lot of the Glasgow guys when they sign for Peterhead don't realise the travelling that's involved with it. So he signed local and then decided to stay another season, where Josh Ray came in, who's now at Wraith Rovers. Similar sort of thing. This year, I think our team was as strong. We ended up kind of towards the bottom end of the table. Again, me mostly as backup, and I think it was maybe with the last like 7 games to go or 8 games to go in the league, we were like definitely in that. We weren't bottom, but we were in that playoff place. So I had been kind of out in the cold for a while. Hadn't played many friendlies because it hadn't been organised. It was a Tuesday night game and we were playing Falkirk. And then as I arrive at the ground, kind of nonchalantly, just because I hadn't played in so long, I was just kind of turning up. Jim McAnally goes, right, office. And I was like, immediately, I think every player has a first reaction of, what have I done? It's not like, oh, this will be good. It's always like, what have I done? So I go in and I'm kind of like confused. I'm like, what could he possibly need to speak to me about? I'm on time. It's not like I'm late. He goes, you're going to start just straight to the point. Like, you're playing tonight. And I'm like, why? Like, why? We're like, surely if we're in a relegation battle, you just go with the team that has been playing kind of thing. But I suppose you could look at it as like, we need to change something.
Mm.
So I'm like, can't remember the last time I played like a competitive game. Must have been towards the start of that season. Now we're at the end of it. So went in, we won 1-0. A great night. The winner was scored by Jason Brown at the last 5 minutes. As you can predict, probably just stick your big dome on that, kind of head out. So yeah, we won that, and then went on to, we then played Clyde, won 3-0 that Saturday, and then beat East Fife. I think East Fife's home record that season, that was like their first or second defeat at home. So finished that season really strongly. Played the rest of the games from there on out and kept us up comfortably. And then it came to that kind of decision time again at the end of the season. Jim was kind of keen to keep me on, and I kind of said to him, like, look, I need to go and play like regular games. I know you're promising me that because I've finished the season as like your outright number one. But I just eventually you get that kind of feeling like I just needed a change of scene. So left there, and then for the summer I'd just gone back to New York for like that whole summer.
Mm.
I had friends over there I hadn't seen for a while, so I decided I'll just go and stay with them. So as I'm over there, I'm kind of doing a bit of networking as well about trying to get a job over there. Eventually got a job offer to stay, not in New York, but in the States. A small place called Charleston in West Virginia, essentially to be like the goalie coach. But they would also then pay for me to do my master's. So instead of going there and paying for my degree and playing, they'd be paying for my master's degree. But as a coach, as I say, old boy now, I'm not going to be playing. So that was tempting. And I was over there, and obviously all my American friends are saying, yeah, like, retire, you're rubbish, just go, yeah, go. Stay in America, You're finished now. So I was kind of like, you know what, you're right, yeah, like, you're making a bit of sense here. But there was always that kind of bit of me that was like, am I really finished at 25? I think I would have been then. And I'm like, yeah, you know what, maybe I'm right. So I'd called the university, like the manager there, to say that, yeah, I'm taking the job, like, yeah, can't wait to get started, all that nonsense. But then I get a call from Andy Kirk, who obviously was the manager at Brechin at that time. Obviously, Brechin, I think, had just finished their first season in the Highland League. He called me and then said, look, we need a keeper. I don't know how he'd heard through the grapevine that the reason I didn't stay was kind of on my terms, that I wanted somewhere that, as much as a guarantee of week in, week out football there was, that you can get in football. He was like, I can give you that. So I was like, immediately, and straight away, I was like, bad timing. Like, I've literally just taken a job in over in West Virginia, but I've not signed anything, so I could still get out of it. So I think that's why he put the accelerator down like then and then. He was like, right, what do you want? Like, go on, like, how can we get this deal done today, kind of thing. I'm like, well, I'm actually in New York, so I can't come and meet you or anything. So we need to do this over the phone, like today, tomorrow, or whatever. Like, can I at least get like a day to think about it? So got literally like bang on like 12, 24. I can't remember. Was it even the next morning? I swear he maybe had messaged me the next morning with a time difference to be like, what's going on? And I'm like, I've literally hardly had a chance to think about it. But I think the fact that I was still tempted by it kind of told me enough that I should take it. And yeah, it's kind of broke it to my friends in America that I wasn't staying. I was going back for one last rodeo. There's still life in the old cat yet. So yeah, that went back in halfway through pre-season. because I obviously had a flight booked back at some point. Wasn't going to come back early for it. So yeah, joined up, and that was that. That was the kind of the start of the Brechin journey.
Yeah, it's a fair change from nearly staying to America to
Yeah, would have been Coach Wilson,
yeah,
but
Coach Wilson. There's still time for that, so
it is. That's why I did always think that it's like I
mm,
can turn around at 33 or 30 or whatever it turns out to be. Um, that coaching's for me now, but I can't turn around at 33 and go, you know what, I'm going to start playing again. So I thought coaching will always be there, whether it's in the States, hopefully, which I do probably see myself doing when the time comes that I'm too sore or too rubbish to play anymore. Maybe both. That option will be there. Luckily, I've still got contacts out there, and it's just about maintaining that and hopefully start some coaching badges soon. That'll definitely help.
yeah. So in terms of your time at Brechin, what was it like going in? Obviously, a lot of pressure in terms of they're expecting to win it and
Yeah.
go up. How did you find that, the title race?
Really enjoyed it. It was probably the first club that I've been at where that was the like non-negotiable kind of expectation. By no means in imagination am I saying it, the standard is the same as the old firm, but the expectation is it's very similar. It's like a draw is not accepted, a defeat certainly is not accepted. It's it has to be a win, and obviously every team that's in the league is dying to beat you. Like whether it's fans, players, everyone, it was their cup final kind of thing, and that's what it felt like. But no, it was great. We had a strong squad that first year that we won it, littered with SPFL kind of experience from front to back, especially at the back. You look at Kev McHattie, Sparky, Jamie Bain, and then move forward up the pitch, Anthony McDonald. But then you also had kind of like the unknown of like Grady McGrath, Fraser McLeod, who turned out to be like, priceless.
Aye.
So it was a right good mix. It was a team that worked. We made signings at the right time as well to kind of bolster it. I think Botty Biabi came in at a good time and really kind of helped us in that final push towards the end because as much as a great season that we had and everyone remembers us because we won it in the style that we won it,
Yeah.
Buckie must look back at that and think, how on earth did we not win that? Because I think we both only lost one game.
Mm.
And Buckie's defeat or did they lose two and we had drawn more? I can't remember how it was, but it was ridiculous records that we both had. And the pressure to win every week. And it's not given to you, of course. Some games were more convincing than others, but I can remember that first season we had our Christmas night out booked to go to Dublin. We're playing, it was like mid-November. We were playing Forest at home. Forest at the time, compared to what, how their season's been this season, they weren't nearly as strong. I think they were probably one of the bottom like 5 or 6 teams that year. Horrible pitch, but as worse as I've seen the Glebe that day. Probably should have been rained off. We were 1-1 until 93rd minute deep into stoppage time. Then we get a penalty. Obviously, with what's on the line in terms of the league, our night out in Dublin, you're like, please just score, like please, and we did. But then it's to go back to the point of like, there wasn't as much as our point tally was high. There was definitely a lot of games where, not scraped by, but we had to really work for it, and that's what this league is. It's great, but
Mm.
yeah, we finally got across the line, and obviously that final day up at Buckie, where obviously they only needed a draw to win the league, was probably a memory in life that will certainly never fade.
Yeah. How great was it to be part of that game? Because such a big crowd and occasion.
Yeah, it was incredible. For the Highland League, it was such a great advert. I think. Obviously, it's just even doing the warm up. By the time you're halfway through it, there was kind of like more people than there usually be. As the game starts. So no, it was great to see the atmosphere and the build up and playing in the game. was good atmosphere, obviously, a bit of tension between both teams naturally. The fans kind of did their bit this side as well, with flares going off and whatnot. So it was great. Buckie fans were great as well because you love getting a bit of stick up there the best of times. So it was magnified even more with the importance of the game. But I think the way the game had gone, 0-0 for so long, with that suiting them, obviously a draw was enough for them to win. It
Yeah.
almost didn't play in their favour in the end because I think they sat back towards the last 10 minutes. Obviously, we get a stroke of luck, shall we say, with our goal. I think it takes a bit of a deflection and kind of, I don't know if it wrong foots the keeper or what. My view was it looked like it just lasered right in, but people are saying it took a deflection. But I think that kind of feeling of like, oh my God, we've done it, to realising, wait, we've still got to hang on for probably about a good 8 to 10 minutes here.
Yeah.
And hanging on was probably lucky to even describe it as that because we were hanging on for those 8 minutes. Like balls coming in the box, like that Buckie team that season were so good at late goals as well. Like every week you would see like 94-minute goal, Buckie 2-1, and you're like, they don't go away. So we knew like we need to be like really switched on, and saves, block shots. It was like all hands to pump. And then I think the only time we touched the ball in that 8 minute period was that breakaway where Grady, I think, just cheated a wee bit, stayed on the halfway line, and I think Sparky just puts his foot through it, and he's just clean through on goal, 1-on-1. And I remember just dropping to my knees, hands in the air, because I was like, this boy doesn't miss. He doesn't miss, not these. And about the only place he could have put it, sticks it in the corner, and then watching the the Brechin fans were on the far side to me, the opposite goal, so I could see them all running on the pitch, and it was amazing. Words will struggle to describe how good that was. Just, I think if we had went and won that game like 3-0, it wouldn't have been as like memorable, but the way that we win it was special. And then the celebrations after with the staff and fans, and it was the bus back, and it was amazing. We got the bus back to Glebe Park, and on the bus from Buckie to Glebe Park, it was great to see kind of like all the staff members like just let loose.
Yeah.
Like Levein was up the back of the bus with us with like whiskey and that. It was brilliant. Because obviously that whole season, of meeting him and stuff, like you've got like the utmost respect for him for what he's done in the game. One of those guys, like when he speaks, you listen. If he's giving you advice, you listen. If he's going through you, you listen. Like obviously ex-Scotland manager, like you're not going to at this level get anywhere close to anyone like that. So to see another side to him was great. Like arguably could have been the most drunk guy on the bus on the way back. So it was brilliant. And then parading the trophy around Glebe Park, and then don't think any of us bought a single drink that night in Brechin.
Yeah. So moving forward to the playoff, how did you find that experience? Obviously, it ended badly in terms of penalties, but what was that
Yeah.
like being part of that?
It was obviously the celebrations lasted long into Sunday as well, and I think we trained the Monday. What was we trained the Tuesday? Maybe I was just rough. Maybe Monday is merging into Sunday as well. We trained the Tuesday, but basically training on the Tuesday wasn't the highest of standards. I think the staff anticipated that, and it was just to sweat it out. So the preparation for the game maybe wasn't the best. We trained obviously Thursday as well. That was kind of more back to normal. But we all knew the magnitude of the game. I think going into the game, we knew that it was going to be a tough game. Whoever wins the Lowland League is always going to have to be a decent outfit. But there was a bit of belief that we were maybe the favourites to win. I don't know what gave us that impression. Maybe it was just we'd won more games than them that year, and they'd lost significantly more games. But they were a good outfit. Looking back on the first leg at their place, we were by far the better team. Like they get a red card in the first half for like a last man challenge at the halfway line, and then you really think like, here we go, like let's go for blood kind of thing. as much as we passed up a lot of good opportunities, they did defend well. I can always look back at a couple of chances in that second half, especially where you just think, if it isn't a playoff game, if that's just a league game, the likes of Grady, Botty, they
Mm.
put those chances away. And then we get sucker punched, set piece, I think it was, and they score with like 2 minutes to go. And obviously, looking back, we were all in the change room after, like, how on earth did we not win that game? Never mind lose it. But we knew as well, second leg at our place, we fancy ourselves against just about anybody. That season, we'd already beaten League One teams there in the cup, so we were prepared and ready to go again. And I think we started that game really poorly, if I remember. We're 1-0 down, so like 2-0 in aggregate. And then you're thinking, right, a bit of a mount to climb now. And I believe we brought it back to 2-2 and went up 3-2. And then I think the final goal, I think our right backs kind of, with the demand of the game and the pitch being as heavy as it was that day, it was a wet day. Our right backs chasing their pacey winger back towards our goal, and it's kind of like a 2v2 situation, as we're both kind of going, well, we're kind of going to finish it off. They were kind of trying to level it, obviously. Pulls up a cramp, so the guys just basically clean through, and I think it's me and Sparky trying to defend it, and the guy squares it, goal. Then we realise it's going to penalties, and did it go to extra time? I can't even remember. I think it was straight to pens.
I
I
think so.
genuinely,
Yeah, I
I
think.
genuinely can't remember. It's a bit of a blur, but goes to penalties, and where it's a bit of a lottery. I think we missed the target for one of them, and one of those penalty shootouts where the standard of penalties were good, other than the one that we missed. But yeah, it was heartbreaking. I think that kind of set the tone for like the following season. But especially going into the start of the season, it was kind of like not feeling like we shouldn't be here, but we shot ourselves in the foot, especially that first leg, like not getting the job done.
Yeah.
And there was a bit of a hangover effect, I think, going into the pre-season of the next season, that of what had happened at the end of the following season.
Yeah. What was it like being on the obviously previous season? You won it, and then Buckie won it on goal difference. I mean, it must have been
Yeah,
hard to deal with that.
yeah. Second season personally was probably my strangest season at the club. We'd obviously started off with Andy Kirk. Kind of had a pre-season that was obviously, as I mentioned at the start, was a bit flat, and I think it was kind of that feeling of like, oh Christ, we've still got to go up to Wick, we've still got to go up to Brora and all that. But we soon dusted ourselves down, and we had that League Cup campaign where maybe the results weren't brilliant, but we certainly ran every team close. So we had a good pre-season in terms of performances, and we felt ready to go. Started off flying. Maybe not putting teams to the sword as much as we did in the previous season, but we were still, I think we were pretty much won every game until Andy Kirk and Craig Levein had been headhunted to go to St Johnstone. In came Gavin Price. I can't remember what time of year this would have been. I would like to say about October, November, going into November.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think our season kind of turned soon after that. We certainly dropped off the top of the league. Players getting dropped that I don't think a lot of people expected to be dropped. Gotta be careful what to say here. But eye opening decisions, kind of like leaving out your top goal scorer. I myself was out. We had other key members, like Ewan Loudon was also part of that kind of bomb squad, as we called it back then. But it's key personnel that played every single minute of every game in the previous season, and it felt like it was almost just like a statement for statement's sake.
Mm.
And the results did turn. As I say, we fell off the kind of top of the league. Gave Buckie kind of the perfect invitation to go stretch the lead kind of thing. I think it would have been about February time. The three of us, well, those two were phased in quicker just because they were outfielders back in the team. I eventually came in after. I don't think Jamie McCabe will mind me saying it's against Buckie at home. So I came back in then, and I can't remember what the point gap was, but it was definitely close. I think they were still ahead, and we were kind of cat and mouse with them till right to the end. And as you say, came down to the final game of the season. We were up at Brora. They were home to Keith, I think it was, and we had done our bit. I think we needed to win the game by 3 goals. We won the game 3-1, and then Buckie only won it 1-0. But looking back at the highlights of that game and speaking to some of the Keith players, Keith could have easily got something out of that. So we were very close to doing it 2 years in a row, which would have been some achievement. But it just wasn't to be. As I say, I think goals scored is what we had the best defensive record, but Buckie had a pretty obscene total of goals.
Yeah. So looking back at your time at Brechin, what are kind of you were speaking earlier about, funny stories. Have you got any kind of funny stories from your time there?
I think I won. Definitely, some of them are definitely to do with the night that we won the league. Obviously, as I mentioned, like Levein up the back of the bus with the whiskey. I think that's more. It's hard to tell a story. I think you just had to be there to see it, just kind of comprehend that this is the ex-Scotland manager, ex-Hearts manager, and he's just been one of us for the rest of the day and into Sunday. I ain't got other classic stories. It's all Christmas nights out and stuff. Going to Dublin and stuff. I'm sure other boys on this podcast will have done similar things when they go to Dublin, and you're kind of all dressed up, and obviously alcohol made decisions and whatnot in certain bars, and there's probably too many to tell. It's hard to think about. I probably should have put more thought into it before coming on, but it was such a good group. I think probably one of the funniest stories actually put myself under the bus. As I mentioned, obviously Gavin Price had come in, and obviously not taking favour at me. I obviously didn't take favour to him. So then it kind of started like a bit of a back and forth between me and him. So we'd eventually, obviously I was on the bench for the most part during this kind of period of time. He did eventually bring in another goalkeeper on loan from St Johnstone. I was like, wait, why are you needing 3 keepers? Like, what's going on? He then said, like, he's going to train with us and then potentially be on the bench. And I'm like, what am I doing then? He's like, well, it's up to you to get yourself on the bench. I was like, wait, why am I fighting to never mind being the team, but to be on the bench? Like, nah, this isn't happening. Like, no chance. So I was like, right, I'll leave. Put me on the transfer list. He's like, oh, no need for that. I'm like, well, there is. If I'm not going to be in the team, but what's the point of me being here? So eventually, I was like to the chairman, I was like, I'm going. Like, can you please just put me on? So get sorted, go on the transfer list. And then they were only willing to let me go on loan, and I'm like, no, I want to leave. I have no point in being on loan. So long story short, they would only accept a loan bid, and teams that would come in, Buckie, who obviously now current manager Spider, was like, I will be keen to take you. And I think what happened with that one was I don't think Brechin were too keen to put me out on loan to Buckie, which I understood, but I was also like, you're the one choosing not to play me in the team, so why can't I go? So that didn't happen for whatever reason. So then I started to really lose my marbles. I was like, you can't put me on a transfer list and then reject the team that I want to move to. Of course,
Mm.
there was other teams that had offered to take me, but I was like, no, I'm not going there. So I was like, right, I'm at a real. I need to try and like force the issue here.
Yeah.
So it come to Boxing Day, and he was like, right, everybody, because he's from Perth, so he was like, everybody up to Perth will go run around the park, and that'll be you sweating out the Christmas stuff, like Christmas, drinking food and whatnot. And I was like, I'm not going to that, no chance, because I'm still in the stage of like, I don't even think I'm in the squad at the moment. So no show, and then I get a call from one of the board members being like, "Oh, you've been suspended with no pay for 2 weeks," and I'm like, "What is going on? Like, no way." So I'm kind of like, well, kind of screw them. I'm not bothered by this. But what they did say was like, you're still expected to be at training if you want to try and get off this kind of probation period. So please still be attending to training. I did not really read that letter properly and decided to go on a 2 week holiday. So it's now known as like the Lenny Wilson European Tour amongst kind of like that Brechin squad that I kind of just went AWOL for 2 weeks. Um, because I didn't even know I was meant to be there because I put a story up of me in Budapest. And we used to train on a Tuesday, and I think it was either Fraser McLeod or Ewan Loudon, and had obviously seen the story and message being like, "You're meant to be at training, you clown! Like, where are you?" like Gav's asking like, "Where are you?" And obviously they've went and told him like, "Oh, he's in Budapest," and apparently it was just like foaming at the mouth kind of thing, like thinking I'm like just purely taking the piss when I genuinely didn't know that was meant to be there. I thought suspended meant right. Just
Aye.
basically, it basically was like they're just not going to pay me for 2 weeks, but expecting me to still train and whatnot,
Mm.
slapping the wrist. But no, I took that as like, right, I'm off for 2 weeks. So I booked 2 weeks off, well, 10 days off work, and I was like, I'm off. So obviously I'm getting messages from Gavin Price being like, you better be back here, or like your time here is done kind of thing. And I'm just like, I'm in Budapest, and then next week I'm off to Malaga, so I'm not going to be there. So it's known as the Lenny Wilson European Tour, amongst that kind of breaking contingency. And obviously it got a heap of stick from when I came back, kind of thing, like turning up to games and being like, oh, I not fancy a trip to, Barcelona this week or anything. So no, yeah, once me and kind of Gav reconciled, it was a good laugh, but for a while it was a bit of a circus.
Yeah, no, I did wonder because I remember seeing the notice of you being transfer listed a while ago, and I thought, I wasn't sure if you were just whatever
Uh,
happens.
it was looking back at it, it was just a mess from myself and all involved. It was I'll have to quickly try and forget about that.
Yeah. So in terms of what was the reasoning behind, leaving Brechin eventually? Was it to do with work or, traveling, or what was it to do with?
Yeah, I think probably a bit of combination of everything. I think it first started like seeds were getting planted when the season was coming to an end. Obviously, it was Ray in charge. Got along really well with Ray. We were again unlucky not to win the league. I think we lost again on goal difference this time to Brora. I can't remember if it was goal difference or if it was a point or whatever it was, but it wasn't much.
Hmm.
Um, Again, kind of how we lost it probably was another reason of like it just isn't meant to be. I think 3 weeks to go, there was a bit of a title decider up at Dudgeon Park. We had gone up there and won 2-0 with I think it was only 2 games to go, 3 games max. So that was a Saturday. We then, league in our hands, went to Inverness away in a midweek and lost 1-0. And they had obviously won their midweek game like 5-0 or whatever. Obviously, them now back in the driving seat with a game to go, I think, or 2 games, can't remember. But it was 2 games because I remember they played Huntly and Rothes.
Hmm.
Um, and obviously, we were sitting looking at that, being like, they're going to walk it in the park, both those games. So we knew probably deep down, if we look back at it, that league was done.
Yeah.
We'd done the hard bit, and no disrespect to locals, especially the season that they had that year. But we should be going there and winning there, and we didn't, and we all knew that was it knackered. So season finished a bit flat. But I think the Brechin board were kind of in a catch-22 situation of like, do we keep throwing the same money that we're throwing?
Yeah.
Because every year, obviously, they're losing more and more money, trying to get back up. So what was kind of promised was that there would be like a salary cap for
Oh,
players. That's why, like, because we were going at the end of the season with no one. Like, usually these things, contracts would be sorted because there were a lot of us. I'm talking like 13 like mainstays that were out of contract. So we're talking like myself, Brad Mackay, Sparky,
yeah.
Catty, Fraser McLeod, Ewan Loudon, all out of contract. Nothing, not a word getting said. So we're all, last day of the season at the end of the game going, what's going on? Like, have you been spoken to? You've been spoken to? Like, no, no. So we all like, I think we went on a night out after that and just kind of try to get a bit of truth out of each other. Like, have you been speaking elsewhere, kind of thing. Everyone kind of had a couple options on the table because Brechin hadn't sorted anything. So when it came out that obviously to what we expected, there must be something going on in terms of finances. We were told the salary cap would come in. Did you want to sign for that? Did you not? I think a lot of boys were getting better offers elsewhere. So I think a lot of us politely had said we're going to explore our options, but we're not saying no yet. Got to like midsummer. I think the board maybe I don't know what happened, but they panicked. I'm guessing in statement signing. Brad Mackay signs on, and I'm like, right, not stupid, and I know Brad. He's not signing for that salary cap, no
Mm.
chance. And then it was like Sparky. No, it wasn't Sparky because he was already signed. They then signed. Was it Sparky? I can't remember. Someone else had signed that was, you know, realistically not going to be in that salary band.
Yeah.
So I then spoke to Ray and I was like, "Come on, like, let's not play stupid here. Like, what's going on?" He's like, "Understand, like, but the board kind of have made their decisions on like who will go outside the bracket." And I was just like, "That's weird to start with." So I'd already kind of had reservations just based on like not other external factors. Like I'd been there 3 seasons, knowing that Brechin were going to only maximum have one more year either way in the Highland League before going to the Lowland League East.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I can see how this. If I were to sign a 2-year contract, I might get roped into having to train in Perth or Edinburgh or something nonsense like that. So there was that part of my brain saying time to leave. There
Yeah.
was part of me thinking, right, one more year, like let's do it. So we all kind of spoke together as like a group, the ones that were out of contract, and said like kind of like who's staying, who's going, because there's no point in only 3 of us staying, 4 of us staying, and then there's leaving. So at the time, it looked more like the majority of us were going to leave. Lewis Martin had left, Ewan Loudon had left. Obviously, Grady was still at Cove. Seth was leaving. There was too many. Kev McCarthy was moving on. There's going to be a massive turnover in squad, and that's exactly what I think Brechin have seen this year has been quite a large turnover. And obviously, me being from Aberdeen, I was going to be the only one travelling from Aberdeen. So I just thought, time for a change of scene, kind of similar to Peterhead. I just thought, let's give someone else a chance at it. I enjoyed my time there. Fans were brilliant. It's a proper like fan-driven club. Fans are involved in terms of like the community and everything that they do. Obviously, the numbers that they travel in to all corners of the country is incredible. Like the buses they would bring to Wick just blew my mind. That was incredible, and obviously the fond memory, obviously, of winning the league and stuff. So I'll always have a special place in my heart. So going back there this season was a bit strange as an opposition player. So yeah, I think mostly it was driven by kind of like I wasn't sure of what the Brechin team would be next year. Would it be as strong? And mostly down to kind of it was time for change and something local at home. Training in Dundee twice a week, getting home at 11:30 at night, then going
Nah.
to the office for 8 o'clock. It was getting a bit knackering and speaking to other clubs. Once I decided that I was leaving, it was just speaking to other clubs. I was like, oh my god, I'm going to be home at, 8 o'clock instead of 11:30. So no, it made sense for me, and it felt like the right decision.
Yeah, so what kind of stood out for you in terms of Huntley to decide to sign for them?
Yeah. Okay, so obviously first, obviously the location. Obviously Huntley itself is not close to Aberdeen, but training in Aberdeen twice a week. I knew a couple of the players. Obviously when I got put in touch, well, when Coco had reached out to kind of try and sell the club to me, did it really well. You can see why he's a salesman in his day-to-day job. I think you always get a good feel of a club and a coaching staff's kind of um, feel for you, and you know their ambitions for the club. It was just sold really well. Obviously, I was speaking to quite a few teams, but obviously, I think Huntley had sold it really well. Really got a good feel from the coaches. They were saying everything that I wanted to hear. Um, I liked what they had to offer, but their ambitions were with the squad that they currently have and how they plan to, improve it over the next year or two. Yeah, look, kind of long and short term plans. It was really good. It kind of fitted in. As I say, I knew a couple of the boys already, so I thought, you know what, why not? Um, Obviously, other options that were presented and had their pros and cons in terms of going up the levels, maybe game time not guaranteed. Obviously, we'd have to fight for a spot.
Yeah, how far up in terms of, level were you getting offered? Was that?
League One,
Yep.
League One and League Two. So obviously, as you expect in football, the higher you go up, the more competition there's going to be.
Yeah.
And of the clubs that I was going into, I knew had two good goalkeepers in my eyes. Anyway, as much as the managers were saying at the time, like nah, if we're bringing you, we want you to be the number one. But I don't think any goalkeeper's ever been sold the dream of
Mm.
being number two. So I wasn't wanting to fall into that trap. And look, don't get me wrong. Who knows, if I'd gone there, I might well been playing. But looking at the two clubs and the goalkeepers they have and how they've performed this season, I'm probably like, yeah, it would have been a bit frustrating. It would have been a battle. And yeah, I felt more comfortable with just being comfortable. Not comfortable, but
Yeah,
going
yeah.
in as the number one and being in the Highland League. I was comfortable with that decision.
Yeah. So how have you found your time at Huntley, and what are your kind of hopes with him going forward?
Yeah, I think as players, I think we're first to admit that we've underachieved. We started off really well, first kind of 3, 4, 5 games, and then against kind of like the better teams in the league. You look at the top half of the league, we performed better against compared to the lower half. God knows why. That's been frustrating. It's been quite a roller coaster, obviously, with the management team moving on at the start of the year. Coming in now with Spider, who's a proven winner. He brings with him obviously Alfie Youngson and Dan Bell as a keeper coach. So there's a lot to get used to just now, and they're delivering their ideas and in training. Obviously, we've not had a game with them yet, which has actually probably been ideal because it's given them more time on the pitch
Yeah.
on the training pitch, sorry, to kind of get their message across, their philosophies across, and so far it's been great. Good character, Spider. Kind of, it's interesting. Obviously, he was a Buckie manager when I
Mm.
was at Brechin, and we've had a few choice words with each other during those games and stuff. But you love it. It's like it's exactly what I imagined. Like playing against Spider, you just thought like
Yeah.
XYZ. But as a manager, great. I've loved. He's been like a breath of fresh air since coming in. Great character, with good ideas, and I think most importantly, great ambition and
Yeah.
a set plan of how to get there. So no, it's great. I think the message is quite clear. Kind of, we might not have anything to play for in terms of cups and finishing in top fours or whatever, but I think we're all kind of playing for a position for hopefully the start of next season where we'll hopefully be a completely different outfit in terms of where we are in the league because we're not nearly happy with where we are. We should be higher with this kind of personnel that we've got. Okay, yeah, we've been hit with injuries, but
Yeah.
even with that, it's not an excuse for where we are. But if you take 50 goals out of any team, it's gonna be a struggle. Obviously, with Angus not being fit, and yeah, I mean, we could be looking at being sixth with a couple of results that could have gone our way, but haven't. But we find ourselves kind of mid-table, and yeah, the ambition is definitely to be striving for that kind of top five. But the league's only getting better, so it's only getting harder. But no, I've really enjoyed it. It's a good social club in terms of off the pitch as well. There's not as many fans, but they're just as welcoming and just as loud in the social club.
Yeah. No, I always wondered if Angus would have went on to like the bigger, I mean, in the bigger like
Yeah,
teams because the amount of goals he scores, I mean,
yeah, he's a natural goal scorer. Obviously, he's had two kind of horrible injuries in the last year.
yeah.
That probably didn't really help. um, but as I mentioned, like Angus will know himself and probably been advised as well that the higher you go up, the more competition you're going to face. Um, Obviously, that's a good thing in football. It usually brings the best out of everyone. But I think you sometimes when you're thought as high of as Angus is at a club, there's that comfortable feeling of like I can really be the main man here.
Aye.
Whilst if you go up the leagues, you might just be another face in the dressing room. So yeah, it's you go where you're kind of valued, and Angus is kind of like got the keys to the town here. So I'm not surprised he stayed, and he probably sees the potential in the squad like I did. That we can go and compete for trophies, win trophies next season, and cement our place higher up in the league, which is definitely a realistic possibility. Now that we've got a winner as a manager as well. Coco was great. Definitely, that's not to say that Coco wasn't a great man manager. Obviously, had us playing some really good stuff, but um, we've got a new lease of life with Coco now. So let's see where that takes us.
Yeah. So have you got quite a long contract with Huntley, or is it just,
Just a 2-year contract. So
yeah.
signed that back in summer.
Yeah.
So I'll be here until next summer. Is that right? No, hang on. 1 year. No, so there's
Yeah, yeah,
4
I know, I know.
Yeah, I got myself confused. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah. In my current contract, I'm definitely hoping that we can win something. It'd be great because it's been a while since Huntley's won anything, so it'd mean a lot to players and staff and supporters. So let's see what next season holds, and the rest of this season, where we'll hopefully put the foundations down to be a strong squad.
Yeah. Final few questions. So in terms of who would you say has been the best player you've played with?
Ooh, I think from a time in Scottish football, it probably would be when I was at Peterhead. Um, he was the kind of co-captain at the time, midfielder called Scott Brown.
Oh yeah.
He was playing for Wraith actually against Aberdeen.
Hmm.
Just a midfielder who could do it all, like could run for days, a goal threat, but could also take the ball off you. A real good character as well in the changing room. Not necessarily like the loudest, but like just automatically just got respect from the whole dressing room through performances and who he was as a person.
Yeah.
Really good with the young players. Respected off the older and all the staff. So he was great. I always knew we'd have to kick on from Peterhead. And he did do, obviously now in the championship with and captaining Wraith now.
Yeah. So what would you say is your favorite away day in the Highland League? Which would be?
There's two answers I think every Highland League player will give here. I think they'll all say Wick because of the bus journey. I think that's probably the
Yeah.
given answer because, like, especially when you win, it's a much more enjoyable trip back with the beers on the bus and music on the bus and stuff. But in terms of just like the ground and the actual game, I think now I always enjoy a game at Buckie. I think I don't know if that's just rooted from obviously the success of the first year I was there where we won the league, but it's always you always get a good crowd, you always get a good bit of stick from the fans, maybe brought on from being a familiar face, but now I mean touch wood, I'm probably going to regret saying it, but I have a decent record up there. So yeah, I think that's a good away ground. I thought also like a game up at Fraserburgh. You always know what you're in for. But
Yeah,
again, it's a close to the pitch kind of atmosphere, and kind of you always know you're in for a good tough game and against a good side always. Who I wouldn't write off for the league yet, by the way.
yeah,
But yeah, I think those two have kind of a special place.
yeah. Finally, so in terms of, has there been any like random moves that have nearly worked out for you in terms of clubs or,
Yeah.
going abroad somewhere else?
Yeah, so when I was just before I'd signed for Peterhead, kind of in that um, time frame of just getting back from the States, I got offers to go to both Gibraltar and the Faroe Islands. Um, the Gibraltar one came about through an ex-coach that I'd worked with in New York. He had recently taken charge as assistant manager over there, and obviously I'd known him quite well for being with him for a couple of years. So I was able to like have a proper like discussion, not just as like coach to player, but as almost like friends. So I was kind of like really try. How are you going to sell this then, Gibraltar kind of thing? He was like, look, standard is decent, but not amazing. You be coming to play, obviously, and we're going to ship you over just to sit on the bench. Um, Money is not great, but it's like subsidized, something kind of similar to what I did in the summer leagues, where they'll give you the house and they'll give you a gym pass. They'll stock your fridge up for you.
Yeah.
You'd be living with one other boy in like an apartment, training every day. And his main selling point was like if you play, I want to say 3 seasons in their top flight, you're then eligible to play for the national team.
I was going to say that.
And I was like, and it's weird because that does play with your head. Because like I could go and play in the Euro qualifiers against like Portugal and
No,
stuff, but I was like,
be class.
it was close. It was really close to happening. But I think my head was still spinning with trying to get back to America and
Yeah, yeah.
then eventually signing for Peterhead. But I do often think like, what if? I think everyone can kind of think that in life, like, what if? But
Aye.
yeah, way closer than I think many people would know about that. But I just think living in Gibraltar, I was like, it just didn't sit fully right. I couldn't take it seriously, kind of thing. So
Aye.
who knows? It could have worked out really well. It could have been playing international football. Who
Yeah.
knows?
The Gibraltar number one who
Yeah, exactly. It's a strange to think what path your life could have taken. The Faroe Islands one was kind of similar, like a mutual connection, but no promise of international football or anything. And do my research on the town, I was just like, like there's just nothing there. It's just like a cold, like fish village. I was like, nah, not fancying that one bit.
no.
Uh,
Did you ever get offered opportunities to go to Australia, or because it seems to be everyone seems to be.
yeah, again, that's another weird one where because I didn't know the coaches over there. It was just purely like a chance coach or agency reaching out. They try and sell it as like, oh, it's really good standard and whatnot. But see, when you go and try and do a bit of research on it, it doesn't seem to add up. I'm like, looks pretty, like the pitches all look crap. Like you look at it, and it's usually like AstroTurf. It just looks like they're playing like a high school.
Aye.
Um, and then I just didn't get the right feel for it. And then obviously that's a similar commitment. Well, even bigger commitment
Yeah,
than going
yeah.
to the US. It's miles away. I've never been to Australia before, and again, you look back and think maybe that was the time to go. And also the thing that scares me about Australia is just about there's every creature under the
Yeah.
sun that bite you, eat you, and I'm just not for me. I think that opportunity came probably later than the Gibraltar and Faroe thing. That came kind of as I was with Peterhead and
Aye.
almost felt like it could be a good escape, but no, I mean that wasn't as close at all as the kind of Gibraltar thing. But other than that, no, you get various agents that reach out throughout your career, and promise you kind of weird, well, not promise you, but suggest weird things like a move out to UAE or
Yeah,
whatnot. But
yeah,
you soon realize when you do take these people on that you're missing something. There must be a con or like,
aye.
yeah,
Chancers.
it's a total change of lifestyle. Like I can't imagine moving over to like Arab Emirates area and living in like near a desert. And I thought living in Texas for a while was bad enough, but um, no, I think mostly European football was as close as it came. Sweden as well before I left to go to America, but um, nah, nothing that materialised anyway, or that I fancied enough to go with. Just America, which will probably be if I do move anywhere again. Will be where I
Aye.
go, unless Trump really makes an arse of what he's up to just now. But
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe on your chosen podcast listening platform. Like us on Facebook, follow us on X, Instagram, and TikTok, and hope you join me next time for another interesting interview.